The only thing that strikes me about this is essentially the gap. The gap between the horse and the dog is big. Now, it isn't, in reality, it's not particularly big, but in terms of the frame of the picture, it's pretty big. And one of the problems with photography is that cameras exaggerate distance. And the closer you are to something, the more exaggerated that distance becomes. So, for example, I mean, this webcam is quite wide angle. So if I sit here and I create, let's say, a gap of my fingers, so something like that. So this is about 3 inches wide. Now, from what you can see, with the edge of the picture being there and the other edge of the picture being somewhere over here, this little gap here between my fingers is taking up, oh, I don't know, 10%, maybe 5% of the picture. So the gap looks quite small. As I come closer, this gap gets bigger. As I get to here, this gap is now taking up 60% of the image. That gap, I can fit my head in it. So the same amount of space, the closer you are, the more that gets exaggerated. So if you want to have, the fingers are really close together here, if you want to have them close together here, you actually have to close them up to do the same amount of thing. Now, because you have zoomed in on the horse and the dog, that gap has become exaggerated. So there are two ways of fixing this. Either you need to be pulled further back so it's got more room to breathe about it. If you had, now this won't work in terms of reproducing. I'm using content aware fill just on this, but just to sort of give you a little sense here of space. So this is just filling in. It's going to do a terrible job where, yeah, necks are concerned and what have you. It doesn't quite look right. But if you now look at essentially the feel of this, if you look at that gap isn't as big. That gap is proportionally smaller than it was when we're here. Here it's proportionally larger. The other option, I mean, again, to show you how it might work, if I copy that, just the dog, raise them up a bit closer, like that, crop this, mask that, and I'll just paint back in the background. Now, if you do something like that, for example, now it kind of looks like it would have to you out of the camera. You know, when you were looking from a distance, they were almost noses touching, it felt. But when you took the photo, because of the way it's cropped, the gap was too big. Now that actually, although that is a complete lie and fabrication, it has the feel of what you were experiencing. So I think, Russ, that's kind of what I wanted to say about that. Is that, and that, by and large, I'm nitpicking. These are damn good photos. But I just wanted to get across that point of the gap because it's something that all of us can kind of suffer from. If you found this useful, let your friends know and hit subscribe.